Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum. Today we are doing a really special product feature on something that we love around here. A great way to get different sounds out of your snare drum, the big fat snare drum. And we're not just talking about that, we're also talking about how your tuning is going to affect how products of this nature behave. Now, there's a lot of ways to think about the ideal sound of a snare drum, or, what people think of as best. And anytime that we can have a quick way to adjust or change or mix things up on the fly, especially in a live situation, I get super excited. Thanks so much to Big Fat Snare Drum for sponsoring this video and giving us an opportunity to go through how to use products like this in conjunction with some intelligent tuning options to make sure that you're getting the sound that you're after and not getting frustrated, choking your drum out, or wondering, why people like these things so much. They're really versatile, they're super fun, and it's a really inexpensive option to add to your kit and really get a lot of new sounds without getting too invasive. They have a variety of products now that's not just for snare drums anymore that offer all sorts of ways to modify your sound really quickly and make it almost like you have more than one snare drum or even more than one kit on stage at a given time. But today we're focusing on the original Big Fat Snare Drum. All of the tuning things we're doing today are applicable to any of these products, but we're going to kind of stick with the original and just see how big and fat of a snare sound we can get. So what's a fat snare sound? Well, to me and to most people that I talk to, it has to do with the length of the sound and the pitch of the sound kind of combining to create a large note with some sustain in it. What these products do is they add mass to the batter head, which is going to lower the fundamental and suppress overtones, which will then bring out the sort of lower parts of the sound and really make the wires bloom for longer underneath the drum. The other thing that happens is you're slowing down the response of the drum, which is further lowering it by adding this mass, which means that the note's getting longer, the tone is getting longer, and the wires are going to be pushed away for longer and resonate. And this results in a really dramatically different sound than where you started with just the naked snare drum. My favorite thing about the Big Fat Snare Drum is that it goes in my snare case and I can bring it with me to a gig, and even within a single song I will be able to get a different snare sound for the bridge or a different snare sound for the outro, and have all these options that weigh next to nothing and don't add a bag to the schlep to the gig. Now, what we're interested in here at Sounds Like a Drum is tuning and tone and things like that. So we started thinking, what goes into tuning a drum to make things like this work their best and get us the fattest sound. There's three variables here. There's the batter side, the snare side, and the wires. They're all working together here. I have discovered with this type of scenario that the snare side is the thing that gets in the way the most, the snare side head. And the reason it gets in the way is because when you add mass to the batter side, you are promoting its fundamental pitch. When you have a snare side that's tuned really high, that is going to accentuate that pitch in a way that can become problematic and sound out of tune and actually not sound as fat. So along with the fact that I don't tune my snare side heads particularly tight in general, if I'm going for something like this, or if I'm going to use a product like this, I make sure that it's still tight, but it's not cranked up, because as you'll see, when you start to play off center when it's very, very tight, you start to hear big notes that don't sound great, and it's going to make your backbeats all sound a little bit different and kind of wonky. Now, getting round to the batter side, the tension of the batter side does change the behavior of anything you add to it. So I like these for when I'm bringing a higher tuned snare drum and I need to go lower, but the other side of that perspective is to take a drum and tune it down a fair bit, and then put this on to take it even further down into the gutter to almost like a pitch shifted or detuned kind of almost like electronic sound, which you can do on the gig if you're doing two snare drums or if you're doing a thing in a studio. It's really excellent for that. And lastly, the snare wires. Too tight, gonna mess up the fatness. Too loose, gonna sound kind of messy. There's a lot of usable range in there. And just real quick, let's listen to some options for that. So at the end of the day, these are not like a quick fix for a drum that doesn't sound great, but they do a beautiful thing to pretty much any drum that you put them on. And with a little bit of tweaking to both of the heads, maybe your heads might be in the right spot already, but with a little bit of tweaking and particularly making sure you don't overtension the snare wires, you can get an incredible variety of sound out of one drum without actually changing up the drum at all. So to sum up, this kind of sound that we're after, the big fat sound, needs to not be constricted. We're trying to move air, we're trying to move a lot of tone, and that means we can't have anything constricting the chances of that happening with our drum. So that means not overtensioning the snare wires, it means not overtensioning the snare side head, and it also means tuning the batter head in a range where it can move enough to get the sort of fundamental note that you want to come out when you add this mass on top of it. If you've kept up with the series, you've heard us talk a lot about choked drums, and suffice to say that adding mass to a drum is only going to add to the likelihood that it's going to get choked because it's just more stuff on there that has to move. So making sure that nothing is choked out on there at all is going to give you the best chance of this working out. Thanks again to Big Fat Snare Drum for supporting us and making it possible for us to do this feature and show you guys all these little twists and turns that you can take with products like this. By the way, if you're a manufacturer that's working on interesting or innovative products centered around drums and percussion and you'd like to be featured on here and have us kind of go through them and try things out and show people what's up with it, you can contact us via the About tab on our YouTube channel and just reach us through the business contact on there. Hope you all liked this video. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe, and look forward to more in the future. We're excited to show off some more products that we're excited about in conjunction with our regular videos.